Seto Kaiba is a very underrated character, but what if I told you that he is one of the best rivals in anime? Yes, he can be a douche sometimes, but it's Seto Kaiba, so he gets a pass. But you know every time Kaiba takes out a duelist, that's when you know stuff is about to go down. Apart from being a badass, what makes Kaiba such a great character, and why is he the perfect rival?
Let's begin.
What we're going to do in this video is to break down from the beginning and take a look at Kaiba's evolution throughout the series, so that we can see and understand his character and character development from the start. Let's begin with Seto Kaiba's childhood. Kaiba grew up in an orphanage with his brother Mokuba after their parents had passed away. Later on, Gozaburo Kaiba, the president of Kaiba Corp and a chess champion at that time, paid a visit to the orphanage. This was the perfect opportunity for Seto's first step to success. Seto challenged him to a game of chess by calling him a coward. They made a deal, which meant if Seto beat Gozaburo in chess, he and his brother would get adopted. Seto, who had been studying Gozaburo's strategies, beat him in the chess game, which then led to Gozaburo adopting the two. Now that Seto and Mokuba had finally been adopted by Gozaburo, things weren't what they appeared to be. It was the complete opposite of the luxury that Seto and Mokuba had expected after the adoption. Gozaburo's actions towards Seto were abusive and physical, making him study with little to no rest. The life lessons Seto learned from Gozaburo was that winning is everything and losing equals death. Years later, Kaiba takes over Kaiba Corp with the help of Mokuba, which leads to Gozaburo disappearing. Now that Kaiba is the president of Kaiba Corp, he reinvents the company and is now the Duel Monsters champion. Seto has always been a genius and was the best at games, hence why he was a chess master when he was only a child. Now let's move on to the beginning of Seto's and Yugi's encounter. Seto meets Yugi and sees that his grandpa had the most rare card, the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Grandpa tells him that the card was gifted from a friend and rejects the offer, but that didn't stop Seto from getting his hands on it. Seto then tries to steal it and Yugi calls him out on it, and they dueled. The Blue Eyes White Dragon doesn't obey him as the card didn't belong to Seto in the first place, which led to it destroying itself. Now is when we can move on to the first episode in Duel Monsters. Even though this episode is also in Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0, the story in the first episode in Duel Monsters and the episode in Season 0 are a bit different from each other. But let's just say that Seto was a lot more evil in Season 0, and that they have more history than in Episode 1 in Duel Monsters. Seto uses 3 blue eyes that he has obtained to get his revenge. But as we know, that duel ended with Yugi as the victor, with him using Exodia. After their duel, Yami uses his Mind Crush to destroy the evil side of Seto. Now that Kaiba has lost his evil side, he was confused about who he really was, and even was in a coma in the manga. Now is when we can move on to Duelist Kingdom. While Seto was gone, his brother Mokuba gets kidnapped by Pegasus, and in order to save Mokuba, he has to duel Yugi and win. Even Yugi said that there was something different with Kaiba this time. Seto didn't duel for himself, but for his brother. So Yami and Seto duels, which would mean that the winner enters the castle. The outcome of the duel ended with Kaiba as their victor, despite him having to cheat to win the duel. As we can see here, Seto felt one of Gozaburo's lessons, which was losing equals death. He felt that he failed Mokuba and saw a hallucination of his younger self, getting mad at him for not protecting Mokuba. But after their duel, Anzu stands up for Yugi and tells Seto that he is the one who lost, and not Yugi. She explains that real courage is protecting our lives, which Seto wasn't doing, and did not have the courage to live with the loss, Anzu explained. We can see that it gets to Seto, but he decides to ignore it and tries to move on. But he knew he wasn't happy with the win. At the end of the arc, when Yugi saves everyone, Seto tells Yugi that they are going to duel again someday and see who the true winner is without cheating. He wasn't proud of how the outcome was. As we will now move on to the next arc, Battle City. In the Battle City tournament, Seto's goal is to be the greatest duelist again, but the person standing in his way is Yugi. In this season, Mokuba gets kidnapped once again, and Kaiba teams up with Yugi in order to defeat the Rare Hunters. The duel meant that if one of the players lost, both of them would fall. But the problem with this duel is that Seto only relies on himself, and doesn't want to rely on team strategy to win. As the duel goes on, Seto ends up teaming up with Yugi. He starts to believe more in the power of friendship and realizes that team play was the key to victory in this duel. Now moving on to the Battle City Finals, when Seto faces Yugi for the third time. Seto built a tower on the island when Gozaburo was the president of Kaiba Corp before Seto took over, to prove that Seto was his superior if he had won the tournament, but it didn't go as planned since Seto ended up losing to Yugi. Yugi states that Seto only lost because he didn't want to embrace his past, and because Yugi had friends who had believed in him. Seto got angry and left. He later meets Ishizu and tries to convince him to help Yugi because it was their fate and friendship. At first, Seto didn't want to believe it, but Mokuba convinces him that their childhood wasn't always bad, and Mokuba wants to see Seto happy again. So Seto decides to put his hatred to the side and help Yugi, and also to see if the keycard that Seto had actually would help to beat Marik. With the help of Seto and with everyone's support, Yugi manages to defeat Marik. Seto then realizes that friendship could actually have a part in victory. And at the end, Seto states that their rivalry is never going to end, and still wants a true duel without hatred. But the duel couldn't happen because the pharaoh left the human world and entered the afterlife before Seto got a chance to have a duel with him. Which is why we will move on to the dark side of dimensions. Here we can see that Seto never has given up on his goal of having a true duel with the pharaoh, where Seto tries his best to bring the pharaoh back. And he succeeds in the end. Seto travels back in time and gets to have a final duel with the pharaoh. A true duel with the pharaoh. With Kaiba's backstory, we can definitely understand his character a lot more. A character that's not really understood by the others. From growing up in the orphanage and having the responsibility to run Kaiba Corp is the reason Kaiba isn't really used to friendship, teamwork, and only wants to be at the top. A character that has grown and has always believed in his goals. But also, pushing Yugi to be at his best is why he is an awesome rival. Let me know what you think. Is he a good rival? Leave a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.